Welcome back to Fun King Garage, and today I'm going to be back working on the Fummins project. Many of you have left me comments, things like, hey, finish that truck, and where's the Fummins? Well, today it's back on the channel, and what I'm going to be working on today is not critical to the swap. However, it's one of those while I'm in there type things, but I'm waiting on parts, so it's a really great time to get it done. And what this project is actually mounting a circuit breaker for a cable that I ran to the back of the truck to run the trailer winch while it's hooked to the truck. I do have a battery on the trailer, but it seems to always be dead when I need it, or it dies during the usage of it when you're pulling the car out of the dirt. So I decided I'm going to run it off of the truck's electrical service, but I want to protect that cable, so I'm going to put in a circuit breaker. Some of the audio was corrupted during this recording, so my apologies in advance. It will be just a voiceover for a little while. The first thing I did was try to find a good place to mount it. I know I wanted it as close to the battery as possible. Then I seen this spot, which would have been perfect, except the hood strut would actually trip the breaker when you closed the hood. I reset it, and it tripped it again. So then I was back to the first spot. The real hang-up is having to think about what actually lives in this area and make sure I leave room for whatever that is. I put the battery in to see if I had room inside the battery tray for any hardware, bolt heads, that kind of stuff, as I was thinking I might be able to just mount the breaker right to the side of the battery tray. But the answer to that was not really. One last look at this spot, and it was time to start the CAD work. I use a lot of manila folders for my CAD. It's a great material to work with, and I got a bunch of it for free at one point. Here I was trying to determine the best material for the bracket because I still hadn't chosen it yet. Back to the CAD, and I had an idea of what it was going to look like. I just needed to be sure there was clearance for the battery cables. Now it's time to convert that template into the aluminum. This should be a fairly easy transfer. After all, it is just a rectangle. Now it's off to the chop saw. I didn't film the cutting because my saw is currently set up in a weird spot in the garage and it's really hard to see. I threw it down here to make a great sound that you don't even get to enjoy. Now I'm transferring where the bend needs to happen. A quick double check to be sure it's even. And a couple more measurements to pick where the holes will go. It's definitely going to be easier to drill it while it's flat. Along that same thought, here I'm transferring the holes for the breaker itself. These are my transfer punches. I picked this setup from Harbor Freight about 300 years ago. Alright, maybe not that long ago. They work fine for what they do, and they're not terribly expensive. Being aluminum, you can mark the material without actually punching it. Here I'm actually mentally training myself for which way I'm going to break it over. Otherwise, if I do it wrong, the breaker will be upside down. This is a spring-loaded center punch. These work well on thin materials as it'll punch the hole without deforming the sheet. Click. Click. Click, 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 click. Now it's time to drill some holes. Here's another Harbor Freight tool. I picked this up as an open box back when I worked for Harbor Freight. I don't use it a ton, but the few times I've had, it has worked really well. Quick test fit, and it looks like it is going to work fantastically. And now I return you to your regularly scheduled audio. Alright, so now that the bracket is made, I'm just going to kind of put it where I want it and try to mark the holes. And then this whole thing can come out and I can actually do this out on the bench. That seems pretty good. I'll go ahead and drill a couple of small pilot holes. Let's see if those line up with my bracket. But I'm going to drill a couple of small pilot holes first. And then we'll go to the larger hole and put the rib nuts in there. I wanted a rib nut tool for so long, and then I finally got one. I just can't use it enough. A little more. That looks like it will line up beautifully. Now I got to put 3 rib nuts in this for the actual circuit breaker. A lot of times you're doing these into a blind hole. It's not going to be easy. Let's go in the armpit. Let's see if I can get it to focus. That may or may not have worked. I mean, the camera shot. These tools are only about $35, $40. And even the rib nuts themselves are not that expensive. But in situations like this where the material is really thin and you wouldn't want to try to tap it, works out fantastically. Put a socket on there to get a little tension. That's gonna be great. That's going to work out fantastically. So at this point, I'm going to take that bracket back off and round out the corners and stuff so that it's not sharp and it looks a little bit more refined and finished. But otherwise, oh, and then I got to get a socket cap screw for the bottom, because for whatever reason they gave you 2 flat spots to mount it on the top and a recessed on the bottom. So get that taken care of, and then it's just a matter of hooking the wire up, and that's all done. So I went ahead and put the terminal on the end of the auxiliary cable that runs to the back of the truck, and again, that's for running the winch on my car trailer or hooking in a set of jumper cables, whatever's needed at the time. Bolted that onto the circuit breaker. Now when the batteries are in and I make the rest of the cables, I'll make the positive cable down to this, and that'll be good to go. And it'll give me the option to disconnect it when not in use so that nothing bad happens or nothing, nobody messes with it or anything fun like that. So that was a pretty fun project. Nice little bracket. It's pretty sturdy. I like it. While this was a small fabricating project, it was still a fabricating project. And that to me is amazing. I love making stuff with my own two hands. To be able to hold something that didn't exist until you wanted it absolutely satisfies me. And while I said this piece is not critical to the overall swap, it's important to me, and I look forward to being able to run that winch off of the truck's batteries. It's going to help me later in life, and it's actually going to help the channel pulling out projects out of the dirt. So I want to thank you for tuning in, and if you haven't yet done so, please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications because it helps the channel grow and it costs you nothing. And growing is definitely what I want to do, otherwise I'd just be out here turning wrench by myself. So this is the point where I got to take my tool bag, hit the road, and move on to my next adventure. Thanks for watching.